So what are the key issues first? So there's sort of this overlying identifying a need for us. So these are general issues. And these, to be honest, aren't really going to do much about getting the client to really want to make something out of this particular area. We'll go through them anyway. Instead of saying you've got an enduring power of attorney and you've got an appointment of enduring guardian and you've got a will, ask questions like, are you going to be able to change telephone providers or get information from your power company if your spouse is in a coma? Because if they are in a coma and you don't have an enduring power of attorney, then chances are under the privacy legislation, the company's not going to talk to you. We've all had that frustration when our spouses, at the shops or at work. If they're in a coma, then you really are in a whole lot of trouble for basically the lack of a 3 or 4 page document. But rather than put it in the context of, have you got this document or is it up to date, put it in the context of the client's life. How's it going to impact them if they don't have it? Do you want to say so you've just got a phone call and your spouse is in an accident. Do you have the authority to control their healthcare? Which hospital, what sort of healthcare they're getting? And that might not just be your spouse. In certain instances, that will follow, but parents and other key people within your family. And then the old chestnut. Do you want to say in who controls your assets when you die? And then after that, do you want to say in who gets your assets when you die? I.e., do you need a will? Once again, this is not really exciting stuff for people, but sometimes it's enough. Do you avoid costly disputes? So instead of talking about getting an advantage, we're talking about avoiding a cost. And apparently, all psychologists tell me that works better to get people to do something. And do you want to ensure that you are choosing who's going to look after your children, or did you want to involve perhaps the government if you haven't put in place appropriate planning? I use this slide when people say, that's all very interesting, Andrew, but I've already got a will. I say, well, your will does what's on the left-hand side, probably can't see from there, but that's the things you own personally. What about all your structures? So that diagram is usually enough to kill off most people's retort that they've already got a will. Because most of the wealth in Australia is held in superannuation, life insurance and family trusts, and all of those 3 categories are generally not dealt with or dealt with inappropriately through the sort of wills that people start with. And I throw that one at them if they're still telling me their will's good enough. And if they keep persisting, then I throw that one at them. And you can't really see that, but that's all what you can do with superannuation. And once again, in the context of superannuation, not have you dealt with superannuation, but do you realise that you've got $1 million worth of life insurance in super? If you plan well, you don't pay any tax. If you don't plan well, you might pay $300,000+ of tax. Do you want to spend 5 minutes making sure that doesn't happen? It's contextual. I'm raising an issue. I'm not actually telling you. I'm not going to tell you the answer today to that problem. But if you've got life insurance, if any of you have got life insurance in super, do you know for sure that if you die, you're not going to be paying 15 or 16.5 or 31.5% tax? Do you know that? How confident are you? You're all advisors. I would have to say that some of you are probably going, well, I'm pretty sure I'm right. I might have to check. Your clients have got no idea. So personal health and well-being is another it's probably the next level down from have you got the various documents. And this one can sometimes trigger a buy-in to get this process underway. And it's usually associated with ill health, getting old, involved in a dangerous activity, something like that. So you can have a little bit of a chat with your clients about these issues. Will you have adequate wealth to sustain you when you die, or up until the time you die? So you're actually framing the context of estate planning in not just when something happens that they don't even want to think about, but as part of the wealth management program up to death. And then if they've got young kids or something like that, what's going to happen after that. So you're actually broadening the scope of people's thinking in relation to estate planning. And then the other question you can work in there is, these days a lot of people want to think about transferring wealth before they die. For example, they might want to help grandchildren with education. Or they might want to transfer a bit of a business to a key employee or to a child to get their buy-in and create some continuity in that business over a period of time. So that's some of those sort of key issues that you can address. So we've sort of talked about we've put the high level stuff, we've got moderate buy-in, we start to talk about things that are personal, and we might be tailoring it to a particular issue or time in people's lives. And then we start to get to more of the nitty-gritty as far as things like asset protection. So we've all sold a lot of family trusts and superannuation and self-managed super funds and all that sort of gear around asset protection concerns around clients. So we can use that one as well in relation to estate planning. So pre-death structuring, are you concerned that you might be sued before you die? What we'll talk about after I've gone through some of these issues is obviously how these issues link with particular types of clients, so you can actually target them to get that response. So these issues aren't going to be relevant for everybody. Do you want to leave someone out of your will? That's, it has, I guess, surprised me to some extent that how common that is. And the reasons for it are usually well thought out, but it does cause issues. Are you concerned that someone challenging your will? That's obviously the next stage on from leaving someone out. And then sort of post-death asset protection. A real chestnut, but probably one of the top three. Are you concerned that you'll give assets to your children, and if they're involved in some sort of dangerous sort of professional activity or something, which they're likely to get sued, and then their inheritance just is blown? Or are you concerned about your children's choices of partners, and whether it's marriage or de facto? Now, in reality, there are things we can do about that concern, but part of what we do on the solution or the answer side is actually adjust people's expectations about just how far they can do that, because we all know that the ability to protect assets from family law claims is quite hard, but there are things you can do. And when there's a particular concern, you can go to particular lengths. But it is an issue that is a burning issue for people. It does elicit action. So it's not, if that's what they're thinking about, even getting them to the point where they understand they can't do anything about it is a process, is part of a process, and it's an outcome for them. And in some cases we can do things. And are you concerned that you'll give assets to your children and they'll waste it? So is there a particular attribute of the child that means that they might not make great decisions and they might need some sort of protection there? So I'm not going to go into the solutions to all those issues, but we tend to use, when we go through these issues, diagrams to talk about obviously the use of testamentary trust, which is something dear to all our hearts, and just using those sort of diagrams to illustrate the fact that we're separating ownership and control through the use of trust to achieve some of those asset protection outcomes. We also might talk about second chance trusts. So I am slipping into a few of the solutions here, but just to put these issues into context. You talk about the sort of things that can go wrong, the losses that we need to avoid over the life of somebody that you might be wanting to leave some assets to. And this concept of giving your beneficiaries a second chance. Give them a little bit of money now, let them blow it. Give them a bit of money now, let them share it with their first husband or wife. Go bankrupt, blow up a few businesses, all the good stuff. But still be left with something later in life. And clients love this sort of stuff. I know it's weird, but they do.